about 4:45 here in rush hour traffic in Jerusalem. We're on our way to a rendezvous on the Mount of Olives with Professor Roy Hoffman. Professor Hoffman is a chemistry professor at the Hebrew University, but he's also the head of an organization called the Israel New Moon Society.
He goes out and cites, records the new moon, and people around the world also record the new moon and send him their records of the new moon. And this is how we determine that there's a new moon, through human witnessing of the new moon, not simply through a calendrical calculation. This is how it was done in the olden days, in the days of the Holy Temple. This is how it was done. We didn't have a set calendar. And so, of course, today we're back in the land, and there is a movement to renew this original and really the way that we were commanded to do it, which is through personal testimony as to the new moon.
Hi. Honored to meet you. Honored to meet you.
Yes, I've met you.
I think so. You look a little familiar. That's right. Years ago.
Nice to meet you.
Should be directly on the moon. I just have to find the moon a second if I can. I doubt if I can at the moment. 252 degrees, and I'm looking at the edge of the cloud. It's a bit too early to see the moon, mind you. Okay.
What I really want to ask you is, like, what is the significance of this procedure now that we do have the recorded calendar? I know that there is a desire to get back to the way the Torah actually mandates the moon to be sighted, but does this have really a significance for us in our time?
Okay, there are three things that are significant now in the sighting of the moon today. Firstly, it is thought, or almost every authority believes, that we will go back to the method of sighting. And secondly, the Sanhedrin, who appoints a Beit Din, has to know whether or not the moon could be sighted, and when exactly it can be sighted, and how high it is in the sky when it can be sighted. That's why I'm now trying to catch the earliest glimpse of the moon. And thirdly, it's Isuk Limud Torah Lishma. That means that we are learning Torah for its own sake.
So when you establish the details of the height, etc., you're saying you're laying kind of like the groundwork for the information that the Beit Din will need
in order to know whether the witness is telling the truth. If the witness was to come and say, I saw the moon 20 degrees high, they need to know, which is what I'm hoping to find out, whether I can see it that height, well, maybe not quite that high, whether or not it is possible by doing this. And now I've got some 3,000 observations. They could know whether people have been able to do that in the past, or whether it's way outside the possibility. I'm just trying to see where we are now. That's 2 degrees, that's got to go to. I'm looking for the actual angles to try and find the moon. I expect that if that's there, that's got to be about there. See the moon? And as yet I don't see anything.
You said something amazing, if I understand you correctly. You're saying that the calendar that we have today, which is accepted as the established calendar, is actually considered to be only temporary, because all the authorities, the rabbinical authorities, agree that at one point we will go back to the sightings.
That is correct. If you read the Rambam Hilchot Kiddush HaKodesh, it says there that this is a halacha l'Moshe b'Sinai, which means it's a law that's very old, not necessarily actually from Moshe, but that when we have a Sanhedrin, we fix the calendar according to the sighting, and when we don't have a Sanhedrin, like it is today, then we fix it according to this calculation, and we do not need the sightings. However, basically all but one authority believes we are going to go back to the sightings, and therefore we must prepare for this. And it's not as simple as you think to see the moon. Sometimes you need practice in order to see it. That's another reason to do this. If next month the Sanhedrin was there and asking for people to turn up, you would need people who practiced for several months beforehand, which is what we could supply.
Amazing. So do you mean to say that when we study in the Mishnah, we study in the sources of our tradition about how witnesses would come forward to say that they sighted the moon, a lot of people have the impression that this was just kind of like a very by-the-by kind of happenstance. They happened to see the moon, so they said, "Oh, we better go and report it." But you're saying that this is like almost like a specialty, like people had to know how to sight it.
Yes, that is correct. If you're talking about a moon that's easy to sight like today, assuming that we get some space in the clouds, then it's a no-brainer. But if you're talking about a very difficult moon that appears for only a few minutes, it could be even only 2 or 3 minutes, sometimes it's 10 minutes, sometimes it's like an hour like today. If it's very briefly visible, it's visible very faintly, and you need to know exactly where to look. People lived a lot more outside than we do today in our offices in front of our computers all day. It's true that someone who spends time outside farming or whatever knows how things move in the sky, but there were experts who would calculate it, not using a computer, but you can calculate it to within half a degree like Maimonides did, with a few hours work. So there would be experts who could do that. That is where, wait a minute, just a minute, where we meant to see it to... You don't see anything yet.
So you founded an organization, the Israel New Moon Society. Mm-hmm. Can you tell us about that and what its purpose is?
Okay, well, I set it up in order to get information for an article I'd been asked to write by Rav Nachum Rabinovich, and it went from there. More and more people joined, and more people sent in information. Nowadays it's run by Gadi Eidelheit from Givat Shmuel, and he takes in all the information and sends out the mailings each month. But people all over the country and all over the world go out and look for the moon. Obviously, for the purposes of the Jewish calendar, it has to be observed in Israel, but say a sighting in Arizona is very similar geometrically to a sighting here, so it can also be used.
Just from a cultural standpoint, there are other peoples in the world to whom this is also important. Is that not correct as far as sacred calendars are concerned?
That is correct, especially the Muslims. According to what they believe, it should be according to the sighting of the moon. There are those who hold it can be sighted with a telescope. There are those who hold that it should be sighted with the naked eye. There are two major opinions as to whether it has to be sighted in the same country or just somewhere in the world in order to make the change in the month. But in practice, the Muslim calendar is set by political considerations in each country.
Now, as far as the halacha is concerned of the Torah, is it supposed to be with the naked eye? Are you allowed to use an instrument?
Okay, it's clearly supposed to be with the naked eye, because it says someone who looks into a crystal and sees the moon in a crystal, it's not a valid observation. Can I have another look and see what we get? Nothing, just let me get the numbers right. We've passed a few minutes since last time, so it's gone down a bit.
How do the binoculars help you to sight the moon? I mean, I see the moon, it's a big sliver, and that's the moon.
It's actually very difficult to see it when it's on the limit of visibility. At the moment it's too bright to see it with the naked eye. The sky is too bright, so it's a very low contrast. It magnifies things so you can see it more clearly. Can I just keep looking for a couple of minutes and then we'll see what happens. Now we have a nice clear space. You turn the camera around there. That's where the moon should appear. You've got a nice clear space there. I really think I should have another shot of trying to see it. Let's see. That's about 0. Now I want to go to 17. That's there. Oh. 0, 1, 2. Well, I think there's quite a lot of haze in the sky, so it'll appear in a few minutes later.
Are you saying that it's out there, but we're not seeing it because
That's
the sun
right.
is still too bright?
Because the sky is still too bright. what actually happens is the new moon, or the first sighting of the moon, it arises shortly after sunrise, and only just as it's about to set, you start seeing it because it gets dark enough for you to see.
So it's actually been out there all day.
That's right.
And we haven't seen it. Wow.
That's right.
Now, if it were completely overcast, raining, you can't see it.
Obviously not.
And so back in the day, if there were 3 days of rainy weather, is there a default that they would say, okay,
Yes,
we know that it has to
firstly,
be a
there
new
is a
moon?
default. The month has to be 29 or 30 days. Secondly, there's a limit of the number of 30-day months you can have in a year. You're only allowed to have between 5 and 8 30-day months in a year. And if the sky is cloudy throughout the country, it happens sometimes in the winter, like last month. Then they can decide of their own accord, according to their calculations. They have the freedom to decide whether it's going to be 29 or 30 days, which is what it says in the Torah. Eile Moadei Hashem lachem. These are your festivals for you. That's another one. This is the first of your months that you will decide whether the Beit Din made a mistake or whether it did it deliberately. Doesn't matter. That's what it is.
So you personally, you come out every month. Now, are you determined to stay here till you sight the moon? That's how it works each month?
Well, I've got a certain amount of time. After a certain amount of time, the moon is going to set.
I see.
However, I'm going to have another look now and see whether we're in the middle of a cloud or something else.
Are you ever able to see it with a naked eye?
Of course I'll see it with the naked eye today. I just want to know whether I can see it first with binoculars or whether it's going to appear immediately. Let me see, it should be over there. According to my calculations, it's right in that cloud, but I can't be sure. No, at the moment it's inside that piece of cloud there. I would guess that it's going to become visible in about 10-15 minutes to the naked eye with difficulty if there's no cloud in the actual spot. Actually, it's just cleared, I think. Yeah, that's just going to go. Is it in the cloud again?
I see it. I see it.
Yeah, I see it.
I see it.
You see it with the naked eye?
Whoa! I see it.
Right.
high?
Only I could figure out where
Now
it
the
is.
clouds are moving.
I see it. I see it. Yep. I see it. Whoa! It is a sliver. It is like a fingernail.
There it is. This is so
I don't see it yet.
This is
With the
great
naked
stuff.
eye. I see where it should be, but
There it is.
Yeah.
yeah, I see it's covered in cloud at the moment.
Oh, now
I see it with the binoculars. I do not see it with the naked eye.
So Roy, we've just sighted the moon. Now, if there were a Sanhedrin, you and the rabbi would be rushing, the both of you, two kosher witnesses, I believe, but of course they'll determine that. You'd be rushing to the Sanhedrin right now.
Right, well, that's true. We'd go to the Sanhedrin tomorrow morning, we'd give the evidence.
You don't give evidence in the evening, at night, that's
No.
correct?
No evidence is given at night. It could be done first thing in the morning and they could declare the month.
Wow. And of course there may be a lot of other people that would be gathering at the same time. Do they take everybody's testimony until they have found enough evidence that it actually is a new moon?
The procedure as described in the Mishnah is they take enough evidence until they've got enough evidence and they interview them very carefully. Once they've got enough evidence, they ask everyone else in, they ask them quickly the questions just so that they don't get turned off by not being asked at all. So they'll want to come the next time. And that's how the procedure would go, and then they would make the announcement.
And at that moment, then it is officially Rosh Chodesh.
That's right.
So all the different korbanot, all the different customs that associate with Rosh Chodesh then immediately go into effect.
That's right.
Wow. So it really is exciting then to sight the new moon and exactly what it says in Torah. You decide, you're really controlling time.
We have these report forms that we fill out each month describing how we saw the moon, and it basically covers all the questions that would be asked by the Sanhedrin of witnesses. It also covers some other questions for scientific purposes like the current weather, which is why I have this little weather station here I've put down here.
On your website, it's mentioned that there are some 60 mitzvot, 60 commandments that are contingent upon proper sighting of the moon.
Right.
Could you expand upon that?
Well, basically all the festivals, all the sacrifices, everything in the calendar is based on the moon. So that's about 1/10 of all the mitzvot.
So, in order to proceed from the current situation to the Beit HaMikdash, Holy Temple, and the offerings, etc., etc., the sighting of the new moon, not a calendrical calculation, but the actual sighting of the moon is completely necessary.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. We can't get to there from here without that. We spotted the new moon. We jump in a cab today and speed off to the Sanhedrin, which is not far from where we're standing, and we get in the line, I imagine, of other people ready to testify. What then?
Okay, well, as I said, what would happen is they would invite witnesses one by one until they had two that had given them matching testimony that they could accept. They would then invite the others in quickly just so they wouldn't be disappointed, and ask them the various questions that are stated in the Mishnah in order to prove that they actually saw the moon correctly. Now, in the last few years, there's been an attempt to set up a Sanhedrin that has not exactly succeeded completely, because according to Maimonides, it has to achieve recognition.
Mm-hmm.
However, we have practiced the interrogation of witnesses,
Mm-hmm.
and that is also a useful tool in education and preparation for the real thing, in that the first time you go, you don't know really what to expect. They don't know really what to expect. They start asking the questions, and then you start getting confused. By the second, third time you're there, it's like, yes, I saw the moon here, here, here. That's the direction, and that's how you're meant to see it. And then they can come within 5 minutes to the conclusion,
Mm-hmm.
with an experienced witness who's been a few times before. So it's also a useful thing to do, to set up a Beit Din that reconstructs the testimony, not to do it in actual practice until we have permission to do so, but it's useful in order to train the giving of testimony itself.
Does the entire Sanhedrin need to convene in order to take testimony?
No, the Sanhedrin has to appoint 3 judges to do
Mm-hmm.
this job.
Mm-hmm. And if in the days of the temple, the Sanhedrin, if I'm not mistaken, they had charts and drawings, in order to help the witnesses describe basically what they had seen. Is that correct?
Not really. The truth is, at least according to the Gemara, is that this was something new that was set up in Yavne after they'd left. That they put diagrams in the Ba'aliyah shel Rav, and the second floor of his house. He put up diagrams to show what did the moon like this, that it looked like this, or this, and from that he could understand what was going on. Maybe that instead of asking the various questions, he could just point to the diagrams and figure out the questions himself.
Dr. Roy Hoffman, it's been such a pleasure to be with you. Thank you so much, Chodesh Tov, and we've learned a great deal and feel that we've been part of a very great mitzvah and the renewal of something very holy in Israel. So first of all, thank you so much for your dedication and for everything that you do for the Jewish people and for the world. And may you be strengthened in this great deed, and may we yet get to see this really used for the renewal of the authentic Jewish calendar.
Okay, thank you very much, and I hope that speedily nowadays this will come to be as part of the complete redemption.
Amen. Amen. Thank you.
Whoa! Yes, yes. Woohoo! Oh, that's great.
What an amazing experience that was.
I'm still shivering.
And not from the cold, but from the newly born conception of just what the renewal of the moon is all about. I mean, I don't think Rosh Chodesh will ever be the same for me.
That was the newest new moon I ever saw, and frankly, I'll never see the moon the same way again.
And speaking of excitement, renewal, shivering, we're going to do something now that I don't know if it's ever been done in honor of Rosh Chodesh Nisan, and I just thank Hashem that we had success in getting away with this, because those of you who follow the story of the Temple Mount know that this kind of thing is not so simple. But we went on the Temple Mount, Yitzchak and I, and we filmed, and I think it came out pretty good.
Some astonishing footage, beautiful camera work.
And we want to take you now to join us for some brand new footage, never before seen, of a tour of the Holy Temple Mount. So be there with us.